Estamos a punto de iniciar una interesante entrevista, tal y como nosotros habíamos prometido en nuestro último video sobre el análisis a la película de Sound of Freedom, hechos insólitos llevados al cine. La entrevista es con Paul Hutchinson, fundador del Child Liberation Foundation, que es una ONG que se encarga justamente de rescate de niños y que colabora junto con OUR, el programa de Tim Ballard. Justamente Paul Hutchinson es uno de los personajes de la película, interpretado con otro nombre por Eduardo Verastegui. El interesante intercambio de ideas que va a resultar de acá será sin duda alguna explosivo, y esto porque la mayoría de los que han hecho entrevistas a personajes que están vinculados a esta película no han visto el desarrollo argumentativo de la misma. Sin embargo, nosotros, que estuvimos pendientes de ver la película desde que salió, tenemos un background interesante para proyectar y para justamente hacer preguntas pertinentes y específicas. Sé que será un glorioso baluarte para el aprovechamiento del contenido que brindamos, no solamente en nuestra plataforma, y no solamente también en la plataforma de nuestro querido hermano Fel, quien hizo posible este intercambio, sino también para todos aquellos que les interesa este contenido, para quienes dan la batalla cultural en sus respectivas plataformas digitales. Esperamos que también ellos le puedan sacar provecho al contenido de esta interview. Así que, sin más preámbulo, vamos a iniciar. Nos vemos en breve. Un saludo cordial para toda nuestra audiencia que nos está viendo. Como lo prometido es deuda, nosotros hemos traído a una figura impresionante que va a estar con nosotros. Es el señor Paul Hutchinson, que sin duda alguna es uno de los principales nombres que está resonando en las redes después de haberse publicado la película Sound of Freedom, de la cual él fue productor ejecutivo. Así que para nosotros es un honor tenerlo acá, y para poder introducirlo hemos invitado a un gran colega y amigo, mi querido hermano Félix Vargas, Delgado. Así que, Fel, puedes presentarte y presentar al señor Hutchinson.
Saludos a toda la audiencia de Latinoamérica, los Estados Unidos. Para nosotros es un gran placer hacer este crossover entre nuestro canal de Palabra de Vida, El Teólogo Responde, y este maravilloso invitado que nosotros tenemos el placer de poder contar con él hoy. Es el productor ejecutivo de Sound of Freedom, la película que está haciendo este gran impacto mundial. It's a pleasure and honor having you, Paul, with us, join with us this interview. I think, and I'm sure we will have a great moment in this dialogue. We were talking to our audience about the impact of Sound of Freedom. So immediately starting, tell us about how about was the transition of being a successful investor of successful companies to these dangerous missions undercover leader?
Yes, well, I had a lot of people that told me that I shouldn't do it, including my business partner. The day that I accepted the invitation to go undercover in Colombia for the mission that the movie Sound of Freedom was centered around, the day that I accepted that invitation, my business partner called me and he said, Paul, have you thought this through? He said, this is very dangerous. He said, you're set. You could retire and sell your company and buy an island and be happy the rest of your life. And I said, John, would I really be happy if I bought an island, if I bought a yacht, if I bought a Ferrari, a Lamborghini? Would that make me happy? I said, first of all, I'm already happy. But if I was doing something else dangerous, if I was climbing Everest tomorrow, you and I would have the same conversation. He said, yeah, we probably would. And then I said, and then when I'm 95 years old and I'm looking back on my life and I say, I climbed this mountain, and I built this multi-billion-dollar company, and I helped rescue this many children from slavery, which of them matters? If I have the skills that they need, if there's something about me that can help to find these children, I need to go. If that was my daughter, that was down there being sold, I would give every penny I have to get her out. I would take a bullet for her. And just because the children, maybe their parents don't have the resources I do, don't have the skills that I do, doesn't mean that those parents love them any less. Or even if the parents were involved, which sometimes happens with these children, it doesn't mean that that child was worth anything less than my child, than anybody else's. And so if slavery exists today, and if people are truly selling these children for these horrible things, there's nothing more important could I do. And I continued to have other very wealthy business owners who, when I told them after the rescue mission, and I told them of the sound of freedom of those children singing and laughing, and how that transformed my life and how I wanted to continue to do more, many of those who are very, very wealthy, they're like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You're so successful. You can just enjoy this life. That's not what it's about. It's not about the money. It's not about the success. It's about having a powerful, positive impact in the lives of other people. In fact, when I was a teenager, I had a poster on my wall. And this poster had pictures of Lamborghinis and Ferraris and a beautiful house and all of these things. And I had a quote that said, "He who has the most toys wins." I now have a quote that says, "He who has a powerful, positive impact in the most lives wins," because that is what it's really about.
Amazing.
That's superb. Amazing. That's superb. That's incredible. Well, we have a question about in this same way, because this is part of your dream to found an organization to rescue all these childs and to fight against these undignified business. So how did the Child Liberation Foundation start?
I started working about 10 years ago with some other foundations that a Homeland Security agent had started, and I volunteered my time. I didn't ever want to take money from those foundations to pay for my plane tickets, to pay for my hotels, to pay for anything when I was rescuing the children. Even the money that I was giving to the traffickers to have them introduce me to other traffickers, all of that money was coming out of my own pocket. And so in the beginning, we decided, okay, I want to fund all of these things, but I don't want to just pay it out of my pocket and not be able to track those monies. And so in the beginning, the Child Liberation Foundation was put together so that when I had payments that would come from my company, I would take a large percentage of those payments and I would put them into this foundation, Child Liberation Foundation, and that would pay for my flights, and it would pay for me going undercover, and it would pay for my security, and it would pay for all of these things. And most of it in the beginning was just my money coming in, and it was paying for these missions that we were doing. Then, about 5 years ago, I separated from that Homeland Security agent and from that foundation that he had put together, and started using the money in Child Liberation Foundation to pay for the rescue missions that were being done by other Green Berets and Navy SEALs and these guys who had created other foundations that were arresting pedophiles and taking down trafficking rings. And so it became a foundation to help other foundations. And we did that for a long time in building up the success of some of these other foundations. Now today, the Child Liberation Foundation is not just here to rescue a 12-year-old from the clutches of a trafficker in Honduras. The Child Liberation Foundation is here to help rescue the 10-year-old inside of every 20 or 30-year-old man or woman who had dealt with childhood trauma sometime in their life. If we can heal people from whatever happened, even if they weren't trafficked, even if they were just raped by their uncle or some horrible things in their own home, they weren't sold, but they were traumatized. If we can help them heal, then That is how we're going to liberate all of humanity. And so you can go to liberatechildren.org, or in fact, the Spanish version of it, we purchased that at liberandoniños.com and .org.
Oh, you're working with Spanish.
Yeah, Liberando Niños will take you directly to that, the Child Liberation Foundation. And you can also follow me on any social media. Just type in liberating. I'll come up first. It's liberating humanity, but I come up first on all of the searches if you type in liberating, and you can hear these messages and these undercover missions that we have done to help find these children.
It's obvious your passion to fight against this dark industry, but when you mentioned at the first that some people close to you advise don't risk yourself in these missions, I mean, I understand your passion. I mean, I'm a filmmaker and I want to put on screen my feelings and my passion of what I believe. But in your chair, what motivated you to risk yourself instead of being in the main chair? I mean, financing these missions, but what motivated you go personal?
Number one, I had a very unique set of skills that they couldn't have with just some of the Navy SEALs and Green Berets that were out there, because of the fact that some of these big parties were being put together by people like Jeffrey Epstein and other wealthy, connected business owners. A lot of these traffickers were looking for somebody like me that would go in and set up these parties. So on this very first mission, and you'll see this when you watch The Sound of Freedom, where Eduardo Verastegui plays me in the movie. He plays Pablo. And the traffickers had all of these children that they were already selling. And they wanted to create a sex hotel, a brothel with children being sold. And they wanted to build this out, and it was going to cost millions of dollars for them to build it. And they believed that they could make tens of millions of dollars a year bringing Americans down for these horrible things. And so we needed to get these guys to call the other traffickers and get them to bring all of their children together on the same day at the same time so that we could rescue all the children. And what the plan was is that I would fly in as me, as a real estate investor, and I would come in and say, hey, I'm interested in investing in your hotel, in your child brothel sex resort. But the only way that I'll do it is you have to prove to me that you have all the inventory, that you have the children that you're going to sell. And so we're going to have a party in 2 weeks, and I'm going to fly in, and I'm going to bring my rich friends, and they're going to have a party with all the children that you have. And if I'm happy with what you bring, I'll fund your hotel. I'll fund this resort. And so that's what the plan was. And sure enough, it worked. It ended up being the largest rescue mission in one day in history that I knew of at the time. More than 120 victims were rescued, were saved, and were brought back to their families. And that's the reason I was brought in, is because they couldn't teach the Navy SEALs how to wear a $4,000 suit and a $50,000 watch and negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate deal. And so I was able to go in and negotiate that. The traffickers could see through fake money all day long. And so I came in as me. I wasn't a billionaire. But I was very successful, and they could feel it. And they ended up bringing all those children, and we rescued them all on that day.
Wow. Very impact.
That's amazing. I have another question about the beginnings, and this is a question to connect your foundation with the movie.
Yes.
How did Sound of Freedom start?
The the beginning of The Sound of Freedom was the rescue that we did in Colombia in 2013, about 10 years ago. And true story, I was asked to come and help to fund that mission and help to participate and play that role. Because it was so successful and because we learned so much about what was happening in trafficking, we knew that it wasn't possible to stop child trafficking by ourselves. We couldn't just keep going undercover and rescuing these children. We had to somehow create a movement. We had to get good people everywhere that were a part of what we were doing and that would all come together to fight this. And that wasn't going to happen unless we created a movie, unless we had some of our people going public. In fact, the Homeland Security agent that I was with, he wanted to be on CNN and ABC. He wanted to have his face out there. And we knew that would start creating a movement. So we kept doing the undercover work. But meanwhile, I went with him and we met with people at Sony and Lionsgate and Paramount and others and shared with them this story of this rescue. And then we decided, you know what, instead of just giving that story to them, we wanted to maintain control of the story so that we could really touch the hearts of people and motivate them. So we found two Latin, a producer and a director, Eduardo Verastegui and Alejandro Monteverde, and they had created some other beautiful films. That one of them was called Bella, and Bella was teaching people how abortion was destroying lives, and thousands of children are alive today because their mothers watched that movie. And then they also created another one called Little Boy. And Little Boy was a movie about faith and not a religious movie, but a movie about connecting with God and doing good in the world. And I was so impressed with that movie. I said, we want to talk to you about bringing this story to the world. And so we decided to fund it ourselves. So I put in the very first money into The Sound of Freedom, into writing the script. We brought them up to my cabin and spent a bunch of time there writing the details of it. And then we took that rescue mission and a few other ones together. We put these stories in this one storyline. All of the bad guys are really bad guys. The children are ones from different rescues that we had brought together. But it helps the world see really what's going on. And then we finished the movie about 5 years ago. And it was ready to come to the world 5 years ago. But we got a lot of pushback from distributors, from big Hollywood and big media that didn't want this message to come to the world. The only way that we were able to get this message out was having a system that would take this to the people by the people, where Angel Studios had a program kind of like a crowdfunding, where good people everywhere said, no, we're going to get behind this. We're going to fund this. We're going to take this to the world so that they can see this message. And that's why it was so successful.
That's great. You know, when you mentioned about Eduardo Verastegui that plays you, I think you mentioned in one of the past interviews that in those times, because the movie was shot a few years ago, you were in that time still undercovering. So how was the deal that you, for example, you didn't go to the media and you were still undercover? I mean, you were like one person and the superhero with a mask, because you had to still get your name in anonymous. I mean, how you deal with that?
Well, when we filmed the movie, I didn't think that I would ever be on podcasts. I didn't think that I would ever go public, and I was just fine continuing to find the children and let the story be told by other people. And so Eduardo doesn't play Paul Hutchinson. He plays Pablo Delgado. the billion-dollar fund manager who decides to go undercover and help rescue children and quit his job. That's the role that he played. And we also took some other things that I did, including me and a couple other operators dressed like doctors, and me and Andy and Jim went in dressed as doctors to go find a missing child in the jungle. And that story that's depicted in the movie, we had to take that story and others that were done by other operators and put them all into the storyline. It went into the story of Jim Caviezel and him doing these missions. The reality is a lot of those were done by some Navy SEALs, some Green Berets, a lot of good men and women that were getting behind it, but we had to put all those stories together. So now, 4 or 5 months ago, the probably more dangerous than going undercover is me going public. But if God protected me face to face with people selling 8-year-old children, then that same God will protect me when I take my voice and my passion and help transform the world and help them get to a place where they're going to fight against evil and they're going to love their children more and they're going to eradicate child trafficking.
Wow, that's nice. That you mentioned in the last answer about the attacks of the media and how the media put an obstacles to attack the movie before the movie showed in the movie theaters, and after that the media attack again and said things like all the persons who watch the movie, they are baby boomers with the worms of a brain. They said that the Washington Post. And my question is, what do you think of the attack by media outlets like the Washington Post that promote cuties and claim that those who watch Sound of Freedom have the brains of a worm?
This should wake us all up. Every one of us should see what's happening and know who the enemy is. When they are trying to control our minds with the movies that we are seeing and their propaganda and the news that they're controlling and the social media that they are censoring, all of these things should help us as humanity wake up and realize that it's not just the children in sex slavery who are being controlled, who are being slaves. The Sound of Freedom is not just the children singing and laughing after we helped rescue them. The Sound of Freedom should be a war cry for all of us to break free from the slavery of big media, the slavery of Hollywood, the slavery of big tech. These guys are trying to control the information that's coming into your mind and the minds of your children. They're trying to take you away from those moral values that your parents taught and your grandparents taught and take you to a place where people think it's okay for a third grader to have their genitals mutilated and changed to something different, where they think that it's okay to put 10-year-olds on a movie like the Cuties and have them sexually dancing. Those are the things that are taking us away from God. They are taking us away from true peace and harmony and happiness in our life. And so we saw it when we tried to take the movie to have some distributors, and we're seeing it now. So open your eyes. Everybody needs to open your eyes and see who's against us. And the ones who are against us, you have to ask yourself why. What is their agenda, and why are they trying to control our minds and our hearts to take away the family values that we were all taught?
Oh, that is great. You know, there's a famous history person that is also in the Bible called Paul, same as you.
Yes.
That guy did an amazing job risking his own life in different part of the countries, traveling to talk the truth about the gospel. Here are you in this time risking yourself by the missions and now making an odd podcast. What is the feeling inside yourself when you mention in other interviews that you have this guidance by God to know to break the protocols and follow your heart to find out exactly the person to deal the traffickers?
Yes. I love that story in the scriptures of Paul. Paul used to be called Saul. And as Saul, he was fighting against good. He was fighting against what he didn't understand. But once he saw the truth, once he saw God and saw that in his life, he was able to shed those things of his past and come forward with complete faith and conviction to spread the message of truth. The story of Saul is my life, your life, and everybody else, wherein there was a time in all of our lives where we didn't live in true integrity, where we didn't live and speak from a place of the heart, where we, in my life, there was a time in my life where I was pursuing money and I was pursuing girls and I was pursuing things that were unhealthy in terms of my relationship with God. And then I realized who I was as a child of God, who I was with the strength and power of my words and my heart and my actions. And I understood that I could leave Saul behind. I could leave that past version of myself that was not the same as the new version that I am. Before the first rescue, the reason why I was chosen to be a part of it is that I lived a playboy life. I never did anything with children. I never did anything illegal, none of those things. But I had Ferrari. I had these nice pictures of me with nice cars and boats and planes and all of these things, this lifestyle, this energy of, look at me, ego. And then they brought me in and I saw what was happening with the sale of these children. And I sat in front. There was this child, this 11-year-old girl. In the movie, they called her Princess. It's the one they were trying to find. She did end up at that rescue mission. She was there on that island. And they brought her. She was 11 years old. She was being sold as a virgin. And I'm sitting on this chair acting like I'm this guy who's going to pay for this party and everything else. And talking with the traffickers. Yeah, I'll fund your mission. Yeah, I'm happy you brought these children. And they brought her in front of me. And she was shaking. And she was crying. There was teardrops coming down her face that they had makeup on. And she was looking at me like I was the enemy, like I was the man who was going to take away her innocence from her. And she was scared. And everything in me wanted to hug her and say, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents. But I couldn't say that. I was still undercover. And I took her hands and she was shaking and I said, está bien, it's okay. And at that moment, I transformed my life from Saul to Paul, where I made a promise to myself, to God, and to that child, and every child on earth that was being sold, that I would do everything in my power to eradicate child trafficking from the face of the earth.
Powerful.
Do you know all the persons who start a battle against undignified human institutions, because these institutions attack the dignity of the humanity or the mankind, all the persons who fall or who fight against that suffer threats, suffer attacks, suffer many attacks for their reputation. I thought about the same Apostle Paul. I thought about the Christendom when they rescued the children in the banks of the rivers. And I thought about William Wilberforce and the Clapham sects that they call, because they fight against the slavery in the Western culture. So I think and I know that you receive all the persons who fight against this modern slavery receive many threats and many attacks. Did you receive that? And you tell about that, or if it's possible?
Yes. I feel very protected because this mission is important. Yes, there are people who attack me. There are people who write lies about me on social media that try to take away my credibility. There are even people who were part of the movie that wanted to have all of the focus on them and not give the focus on some of the Green Berets and Navy SEALs that were there. There are people who try to break down the message that we have and write things about us on media and other things that say, oh, they weren't really there. I was there. I have pictures. I can and I have detailed testimony of what happened on every one of these rescue missions. And I know that there will be more people that try to take away from the word of God, that try to take away from the word of truth. But I also know that light is more powerful than darkness. And I do not fear. It's important to understand that fear and faith cannot exist in the same person at the same time. They can't exist together. The reason behind it is that in a way they're the same power. It's that belief. Some people believe that bad things are going to happen and they actually attract that to them. Other people believe in the power of God and that good things will happen and they attract that to them as well. When I was undercover finding these children, there were so many times where finding the children wasn't logic and protocol. It was listening to our hearts and being led. This isn't a religious discussion, but I need people to understand that I believe in God. Most people believe in a supreme being. Some people call him, a mountain or the universe or a cloud. Some other religions may call him Allah, whatever. It doesn't matter. God exists and cares more about these children than you and I ever could, and knows exactly where they are. So because of that, I was able to have unwavering faith, unwavering conviction that we were going to find the children and that we would be safe. I have that same unwavering faith and that unwavering conviction today that this message needs to be sent to the world and that we will be protected, that me, my family, and my team will be protected by forces way beyond me and my control, that these words can reach the ears and the hearts of billions of people and help them stand up for what is right, help them shed slavery in all forms, help them get rid of the trauma that they're holding on to from their own childhood, from their own past. We truly can liberate humanity. That's what this is all about.
Working hard and being brave. That is one of the texts from the Bible. And I think with your speech and working on without being fair is what you're trying to say. You told something very interesting about not giving to the big companies the power to control the content of the movie because they can serve it. In which point of the construction of the Sound of Freedom project you realize that, okay, if we give them the power to make the script and produce the whole idea, they will take the project in an other way that can break our own philosophy? I mean, which was the moment you said we have to do this by ourselves?
We were in communication with some of the big media guys in Hollywood. and they expressed interest in the story. It was a very compelling story. But then when they presented their agreement, we were told by the attorneys that were working with the foundation that I was helping at the time, they said, these guys want total control. They want to pay for the story, for the life rights, but they want total control. And they told us, our attorney said, they could put you and Tim in a bedroom scene together in the middle of the movie, and you couldn't do anything about it. They could table it for 10 years and have that be something that never comes out. They could make it so that one of your operators was ended up touching one of the children. They could, all of these different things that they could add into the script, to the storyline, were things that they wanted full control over. And we wanted the truth to come out. We wanted the heart of the mission, the plight of the children. We wanted to be focused on the children, not on whatever agendas that Hollywood had. So that's when we stepped back and said, okay, there's only one way we can do this. We need to have the script written under our total control so that we could see exactly what was going on and what messages were sent to the world. That's why we put it together the way that we did. And that's why I put the first money in to help write the script. The first $400,000 and got converted into another $600,000. All of that just to make sure that the right message was being taken to the world.
Exactly. That is a big point.
In Spanish, we have a play of words about the word pray. Pray in Spanish is translate oración. And this word has two parts in the word. Orar, pray, plus action. And we say when you pray, you need to pray, and you need to become this pray in a reality with your actions. And I think that's the point. So return to the movie. When the project was done, did you imagine the impact that it would make to the world?
We created the movie so that it would have that impact. From the very beginning, my thoughts, words, and actions were this: we will create a movie that will create a movement. You don't create a movement with just a few people watching it. You create a movement by everybody who sees it, that spreads it to more and more people, that everybody wants to see this film. Everybody wants to get involved. That's how you create a movement. Now, we left it in the hands of God to create that movement. There's nothing that we could have done to create this massive movement throughout the world with the success of this film. There's nothing we could have done ourselves. And so it starts with a thought. Your thoughts are powerful. Your words are powerful. And your actions are powerful. And all of them, it's not just the law of creation. It's not just the law of attraction. It's the law of creation. It's creating together with God something that is so much bigger than any of us can do on our own. And so people ask me, how do you feel that it's doing this well? And I answer this: exactly like I imagined it would. So nothing happens in our life that isn't already created here and here in your mind, in your words, in your actions. And so when somebody becomes successful in their business, when somebody wins a gold medal, when somebody, whatever it is, you have this goal that seems unachievable in your life, and you visualize it and you feel it and you taste it and you smell it as if it's already there, and you have gratitude in advance for those things that are going to happen in your life, that is the purest form of faith. And then when those things come into your life, it's not a surprise, because you already saw it, you already believed it, you already felt it. That's how we create in our life. And that's how I feel about the movie. I'm not surprised. This is what I believed it would be when we first started putting it together.
That is a great explanation of faith. And it's interesting because when the movie was done, all the big distribution companies closed the doors, and then you go to this smaller production and distribution company that have this Christian philosophy. And this was the key that God used to make the impact. I mean, it was not the big guys. It was a small one that had the faith, share with you that, and have the vision that it will be the impact. I mean, the same impact that you had when you first imagined producing the movie, I think is the same imagination that Angel Studios had. And I saw your IMDb with all these movies. Do you have any other movie project behind your hands? Do you would like to continue being executive producer? You're going to create your own film company? What are you going to do with that?
Yes. In fact, I have a new film that I'm partnering with that is also about trafficking. It's a true story. It's beautifully written. And I'm working with some Latino producers with it. My wife is going to star in it. My wife is Ada Vanessa. She's an actress from Colombia. And she just did a movie a couple of years ago in which she was an assassin who kills assassins. But this new one, I'm putting some of my own money in, and I'm bringing together other investors within the next couple months. And I believe that it will be very, very successful, just like this one. We have many different films about true stories that people are going to get behind and make an impact in the world. So yes, if somebody wants to invest together with me in some other films coming up, I'm putting together a team that's going to bring films like this to the world, and using the success of this one and my credibility to help make them successful.
Great.
Well, that's nice. I want to watch. You know that I saw the movie in the first day that the movie appeared in the movie theaters, July 4th. And I saw with my sister. And one of the moments of the movie that moved my heart was this sketch when all the children sing this song, and Caviezel plays Tim Ballard, asked to his partner what they sing, and he said, "That's the sound of freedom." And I heard that this particular sketch have a connection with your experience.
Yes.
Tell about that, please.
So after that experience in Colombia, I started sharing that story with my meetings with my investors, when we met with the people at Paramount and others. Even my very first meeting, when I sat down with Eduardo Verastegui and I told him my experience. And this is what I told him. I said, that child, that 11-year-old child who was brought in front of me, she was crying, and we could hear the crying even before she was brought out. And then the most beautiful moment of my life happened. After the agents came, they stormed the party, they arrested everybody, and then the Child Protective Services people came in with the children. And they started laughing and singing to calm the children down. And that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. And I started crying. I was actually in this area of the house that had a grass roof over the top. And I was in this side section with one of the operators. And I have some video of me hearing the laughter in the other part of the room, crying. And that was so impactful to my life. And so from then on, for the next 2 years, every single time I told that story of that rescue, it was about the children. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about Tim. It wasn't about any of the other operators that were there. It was about that sound of joy that was coming from that other room, the laughter of the children in that other room compared to the crying that I heard half an hour before. That sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. Now, some people are trying to change the narrative, saying that as we were backing away on the boat, now that the movie's been named The Sound of Freedom, there's other people that say, when we were backing out on the boat, the children were told that they were rescued and all of them rose up. Yay! That didn't happen. That did not happen. They didn't rise up and yay, whatever else. They were there in the home. They were still scared, but there was laughter that was going on there in the home. And as we were being led off of the island, this little girl, the same one that was standing in front of me with the tear stains in her face, she was standing there by the screen door. Her hand was on the window on that screen door part. She was crying again, but she was smiling and waving. And she said in her broken English, she said, "Thank you, Americans." And I started crying again. And I turned to the agents that were with me. One of them was the Attorney General. And I said, that changed my whole life. I've spent my entire career making rich people richer with the fund. I want to make a difference. I want to help these children. What do you need? Can I write a check? Can I be involved? What can I do? And I was told, well, Tim wants to go public. He wants his face on CNN, ABC. We need somebody who can continue doing these. And you fit the profile. You come from a successful background, similar to guys like Jeffrey Epstein and others that these traffickers are looking for. If you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life. So from there, I continued doing undercover rescue missions. I have led or played a key part in over 70 undercover rescues in 15 countries over the last 10 years. I started out playing the role of the wealthy buyer. And then after a year and a half or so, I ended up going deep cover and pretending to be somebody who was finding the children for a wealthy buyer. And we found the children and we were protected. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children were rescued. And through my foundation, the Child Liberation Foundation, and others that I have helped to fund and help to start, well over 5,000 trafficked victims have been saved and returned to their families. That is more important than all the money in the world, than all the businesses that you can create, is creating freedom for those children.
Being that character that you created to be in the undercover missions, you have to have an action skills to control yourself. Have you ever thought, now that you are going on public, now that you're not directly in undercover missions, we like to get into the experience of being in the movies that you produce by your own self?
I never wanted my face to be out. I wanted this about the children. This isn't about Paul Hutchinson. This is about liberating humanity. And if my role can be in it, in fact, the movie that I'm helping to fund right now and putting together, they want me to be in a part at the end because of my involvement in these. But the reality is, it's my voice, my heart, my compassion, and my passion that's going to help transform the world. And if I can be in a place where my face can help, great. But I don't need that. I wanted this to be about the message. This is why it's not directing people to Paul Hutchinson official website. It's directing people to liberating-humanity website. That's what it's about. It's about the people. It's about the children. It's about the message. So maybe, but probably not. I'll let the professionals do that.
I can, before Nestor make another comment, I can tell as a producer that not every actor, professional, as you said, will do a real role as you did in the missions.
Yeah, we have a few of the actors that have said, "Yeah, I went undercover." We have a lot of guys, actors, and even people like Tony Robbins and others who have come and seen a rescue mission. They're in a very safe place. They're protected, but they're able to see the actual rescue mission itself happening with the children. But going deep cover, 2 a.m. in downtown Port-au-Prince, Haiti, downtown Mexico City, that would be dangerous for somebody who had a social media presence or an actor or whatever else. And so that's where the most credit should go, is those good men and women who truly risk their lives to find these children and bring them to a place where they could be rescued, where they could be freed and given a new life.
You know that I was very surprisingly when I saw Manny Pérez in the movie. He's from DR, but my another surprise was to saw Mira Sorvino's place in the movie, and Sorvino is famous because she's joined to this battle against the human slavery and the human trafficking, and she played I think a TV show was called Human Trafficking with Donald Sutherland. But my question is, which is the difference between this TV show in 2005, I think, 2005, this TV show, Human Trafficking, than Sound of Freedom? Why Sound of Freedom made this movement and Human Trafficking did not? This is my question. What do you think about?
Well, I say trust the timing. God's behind all of this. This isn't about me. This isn't about her. It's not about anything other than now is the time for the world to wake up. And there were a lot of films about trafficking, but it was a dark subject, something that people didn't want to talk about. It wasn't good for polite conversation at a dinner table. And now the world is ready. They're sick and tired of being locked down with the COVID thing. They're sick and tired of being controlled with the censorship and social media stuff. They're feeling the grip of control and slavery in their own life. And for them personally, they want to break free of that. And this is a message of things that they can do together, the group, the people coming together to fight against those systems of control in their life. So I believe that this is the beginning of a transformation in the human soul, of people looking heavenward instead of looking into their phone, of people connecting with something greater than themselves. They're ready. And this is just the beginning.
I like it that. I like that. I like this sound.
Yeah.
You know, I have a last question. This is for my part. This last question. Because Sound of Freedom talk about the human trafficking, but what other institutions or areas of child sexual abuse should be reported apart from human trafficking?
Here's what's important. When you watch the film, you think that trafficking is a child being taken and sold into another country or whatever else. The majority of children who are being sold for sex by an adult, the majority of them sleep in their own beds at night. Most people don't realize that. They're being sold by their babysitter. They're being sold by their uncle. They're even being sold by their parents. Over 90% of child sexual abuse is done by a familial member, somebody that's part of the family or somebody that's a neighbor or whatever else, where a neighbor will groom a child or a 13-year-old. They will say, hey, I've got this picture of you naked, and I'm going to show it to your parents, and I'm going to show it to your bishop, and I'm going to show it to your church unless you do what I say. And you can't tell anybody. And then they start selling them and trafficking them. And they're living in fear. And even the ones that are taken away from their family, they're controlled through fear, saying that we know where your sister lives, we know where your mother lives. And that level of control is being implemented on these children. Yes, there's over 10 million children that are being sold in child trafficking today, but that's a tiny number compared to the bigger problem. And the bigger problem is this: over 1 billion women, 1 out of every 4 women on the planet, has been a victim of sexual violence as a child. As a child, most of them in their own homes. With men, it's a little bit less. It's 1 in 5, 20% at some time in their life. But even those, there's 1 out of every 4 of those. 25% of them, 200 million men who that sexual abuse happened under the age of 10 years old, most of them in their own homes. So we as parents need to take this wake-up call, and we need to say, no, we're not going to let this happen to our children. We are going to stand up and protect them at all cost, in all ways. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, and that is an important point that you mentioned, because it happens in every part of the world. Here in our Latin American countries, it's common. The same family having a rich man behind them, buying the children, they do whatever they have to do, and they come back to families. I think one of the most impact of this movie, Sound of Freedom, is about the stories about the children that don't go back to home after being abused. It's about taking them as emergency and go to another countries. I mean, it's not like, okay, I have a business with a rich man, you go and do whatever you got to do, and then you come back with the money, and not having a good moment psychologically. But stories about the children that don't come back is even more dark. Do you have to closing this amazing dialogue, do you have a final message to keep the fight against the child trafficking?
Yes. The most important thing you can do as a parent is to hug your child, to show love for your child. People say, how does that going to fix it? Well, the majority of children that are taken come from foster homes, broken families, runaways, things like that. So you create a safe environment for your child where they don't end up in that broken family, in that foster home, etc. Number 2, the children that are groomed by traffickers to start trafficking them from within the home are ones that the children have low self-esteem. They don't have a healthy relationship with their parents. They look down all the time when they're walking. You need to have a relationship with your children where they can come to you and say, Dad, Mom, I feel uncomfortable when you make me hug Uncle Harry. Or I feel uncomfortable when I go over to this friend's house because of her brother. Or this person, this teacher is telling me that I should trust them more than you. These are all different things that people will use to groom the children. But if you show them love and make a relationship with them where they can come to you and share those problems and those challenges, and then work on yourself as an adult, make sure that you're not holding on to any trauma of your childhood that might come out in abuse of a child, in verbal abuse, in anger, in physical or even sexual abuse. So heal yourself so that you can keep your children safe. That's my advice to the world.
Paul, it was an honor and having this amazing dialogue. Thank you to all the audience from your public. Thanks to the audience who El teólogo responde from Nestor. Thank to our audience, Palabra de Vida. I hope we can get together once. I don't know if it's going to be in Utah. I don't know if it's going to be in New York or in the Dominican Republic, but I hope soon we can share some coffee and still talking about this. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your message. Thank you for your life's testimony. We hope and we pray God for you, for your missions, and keep on the fight.
Yes, of course. And if you come to New York, you have a friend here, a brother with open arms to hug and to support this project, because we believe in that project. And I remember the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He said in one occasion words that impact myself. The church fell silent when it should have screamed. I think this is the time to scream. Like the Apostle Paul said in Romans chapter 13, verse 12, the night is far spent and the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness and let us put on the armor of light. This is a martial language because this is a battle. We are in the battlefield, and we need to take the armor of the light and to fight against these darkness forces behind this undignified business. And I think this is the best reflection, or the best reflection we can do to all the people who saw this interview. And I think this is my best interpretation of about your final message.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too.